Hey everyone, it's Sam Chassie with Mind's Eye Mastering, and welcome to episode 2 of my Master Chain Rundown series. Today we're going to be mastering a pop song by Knox Wright. This is a song called Forget You, which I mastered about a month or so ago, and it's already out. I'll make sure to have a link to Knox's social media and the song and the rest of his music down in the description below, so please go check him out. Big thank you to him for letting me use this amazing song for the demo today. So, as described, we're going to be running down through all of my processing and how I mastered this song. So let's get into the session. Alrighty everyone, welcome into the mastering session. So as you can see here, I've got the mix and then some printed tracks of the master and some automation going on here. We'll get to all of those sort of as they arise, but just so you sort of understand my signal flow with the mastering chain here, let's take a look and see what my channel routing is. So as you can see, I've sort of bypassed everything and we'll bring it in sequentially, but here we've got the mix on this stereo audio channel here, and I send it out via play 1 and 2 on my Lynx Hilo, which is my AD-DA converter. So 1 and 2 is routed to the line out on my Lynx Hilo, which allows me to go through my analog chain via XLR, and then that comes back into the line in input on the Hilo, which I have routed to USB 5 and 6, so I can get it back into Pro Tools. We do a little bit of digital processing there, and then print it out onto this audio track by just connecting these two channels via their outputs and inputs. And then from there, we do that again for our final sort of digital processing stage, and then we have our final recorded master here. So before we get started, let's go ahead and just playlist my sort of original master prints, and we will just take a quick listen to this section of the song, which we're going to be using for pretty much everything demoing this song. We will go ahead and listen to one other little section for our first plugin, but pretty much everything else we'll use this because it's sort of the end of the first verse, first chorus. So it's a nice dynamic shift and kind of gives us a good sort of baseline to hear all those sort of processing in the right context within this song. All right, so let's go ahead and just take a quick listen to this. Cool. So yeah, really, sort of nice, lush pop song. A lot of, sort of modern elements to it, but also a really nice 80s vibe with all the sort of synths and drum sounds happening, which is a big part of why I love Knox's music and love working on it. But my sort of thought process when I was critically listening to all of this is to definitely sort of go for more modern pop sound, especially just in terms of the final loudness. But you'll hear in terms of width and sort of that sort of stuff, I do kind of try and go for an 80s vibe as well, and just trying to really lean into that sort of really nice, lush 3D sound, especially when at the end of the song, which I'll play a little quick clip of, although it's not so important for this video, there is a sax solo, and it kind of gets into a more sort of ambient instrumental thing at the end here. So it's definitely really important to my ears when I was listening to this mix to maintain dynamics, as this isn't just, a sort of all high level all the time sort of pop song. There's some other things happening here that need to be respected and maintained. So let's just hear that really quick. Yeah, fun stuff. And also just to give you an idea of, sort of what I was thinking about in this Master 2, the reference that immediately popped into my head was Back to Being Friends by the loudness I was going for and the overall sort of tone, it was something that I just kind of kept in the back of my head as I was working on this. So let's go ahead and get into my first plugin. So as mentioned, this is actually, we're going to demo this on a different part of the song just because it's a de-esser, and this first little section doesn't have a lot of the sibilance that I was hearing that needed to be addressed. But as you can see, I just kind of ended up settling on the vocal de-essing in music preset, and then I sort of tweaked it for this song. So let's go over to this section of the song over here, which is where the really sharp sibilance stuck out to me. This de-esser wasn't something that I initially put on the chain, but as I sort of got further down into building up my levels of processing and towards the final level of loudness, the sibilance started to really jump out at me and kind of fatigue my ears. So I knew I had to go back and hit it and treat it the first thing in the chain. So let's play the section that really helped me realize that. All right, so let's hear it unbypassed first, and then I'll bring it in after a couple loops. Listen for hertz and see. You hear how annoying that is? Let's bring it in. So yeah, it just kind of really smooths out that sort of percussive and sibilant sort of on hertz and C. And there's a couple, more instances as that sort of happens throughout the whole mix. But yeah, that was the sort of section that really jumped out to me, where I was like, oh man, okay, I gotta do something about this. But yeah, from there I have FabFilter ProQ3, one of my favorite little surgical digital EQs here. So as you can see, a lot of the moves I'm making here are really subtle, like nothing other than this, high pass filter here is more than 0.3 dB. So we're gonna have to really make sure you're listening on good headphones or really reliable monitors in a treated room so you can hear this. But yeah, let's go ahead and we're gonna bypass everything, and first we'll just kind of listen to what I did with the high pass filter. So, it's sort of a classic trick in mastering to sort of roll off the low end a little bit in the side image, because it kind of helps focus the low end a little bit. I don't use it on every single master, but especially for pop or something that I really need the kick or bass to sort of, kind of punch out on, this can be a really, really helpful trick. So let's hear that happening. I've needed you to hold me lately. Hurts not to see you in every single turn I've seen. I won't forget you, baby, and all the separate places. Hear the kick get more focused and defined. And here, barely audible, like just a little bit of low end I'm taking out here. As you could hear, it's really not a lot of low end I'm removing from the side image there, but it's enough that it makes an important difference and really sort of helps define the kick a little bit more, which oftentimes in my mastering chain, the first sort of things that I'm addressing is focusing and sort of, getting the low end shape to how I want, so that when I am kind of just building up lots of enhancements at the end, it's not something that's going to get out of control. So the next sort of move I have here is basically a 0.2 dB boost at 200 hertz on the mid image. So, usually that sort of 200 to 400 hertz range in the low mids can often degrade clarity if you're boosting it a lot, which is why I only have a very subtle sort of boost here, because a lot of, fundamentals of low end and stuff like that can live here, or maybe not the bass, but the vocals and stuff. But that's why I targeted it, because I wanted to add a little bit more body to the vocal. So as you can hear, I think I did a pretty decent job of that. Here, jump out a little more. Yeah, just adds a little bit more body and weight to the vocals without, you know, degrading clarity. And then the next two moves I have here are subtractive. So taking out a little bit at 770 hertz and a little bit at almost 1200 here. So it's kind of that sort of trick of, you know, scooping out the mids a little bit to add a perceived boost in the highs and the lows. And it also sort of just, again, sometimes that there's a little bit too much buildup in the mids around here in a lot of mixes I've heard, which, you know, could just come down to sort of, you know, perhaps unreliable monitoring or something. But when I do make this move, it just adds a little bit more clarity to things and just helps things sound a little bit more polished. So let's hear what happens with that. I've needed you to hold me lately. Not to see you in every single town I've seen. I won't forget. Let's take the whole thing out. And all the separate faces, all the separate places we go. I won't forget you, baby. There's no more time wasting. Yeah, so to my ears, it kind of just helps clear out a little bit of synth from the vocal and just, you know, opens things up a little bit in the mid-range a little more. So the next and final two moves here are just some simple boosts. One in the side image at about 8.7K. This just helps add a tiny little bit of width and just helps the synth pad sort of pop out a little bit more. And then adding a little bit of sparkle to the vocal here at about 16 kilohertz in the mid image. So let's hear those in context. I've needed you to hold me lately. Not to see you. Sparkle. So yeah, it just kind of brings the mix to life a little bit more. You know, it's not anything super crazy, but again, it just sort of helps refine things a little bit more and gets that sort of more finished sound before I start doing some slightly more extreme things with analog processing. So next plugin I hit is Ozone's low end focus. So I settled on the punchy and smooth preset that I then tweaked a little bit. So I think standardly the punchy and smooth one that affects the transient sustain is usually at 50 on each for the contrast, but I found that to be definitely too extreme for this song. So I backed it down a little bit, just enough to add sort of some more life to the low end, as you'll hear, especially with the kick. It just adds a nice amount of punch and just really helps a lot of the drums pop out. Here's what it's affecting. Transients. Yeah, so all that sort of work that I just did with the EQ to kind of, you know, like really sculpt the mid-range, this sort of helps now, especially with the low mids and the bass, it helps just kind of bring it to life now, which, you know, is a big part of what I try to do with this initial digital processing. So from there, I've got master rebalance, so we'll activate it now that we want to hear it happening. So this is our first instance of automation. you know, I don't know. I feel like automation and mastering is something that perhaps doesn't get talked about enough, but just like mixing, it can be a super powerful tool. So I'm using it in this song to really add impact to the choruses. So all that I'm doing is having it come on during the chorus sections and adding 0.5 dB of gain to the vocals in the Rebalance plugin, which is a really, really helpful module of Ozone's. I use it quite often. Sometimes, you know, if you get more extreme with it, it can be a little weird because of whatever, you know, algorithm it's using to sort of isolate, you know, the various stems within the mix. But especially with vocals, it can be a really, really helpful thing. So yeah, just bringing up the vocals in the chorus is just a really great way to add impact to a song and, you know, really help the choruses hit hard, which makes the song feel more catchy and memorable, which is, you know, kind of all what it's all about. So let's hear that happening. I will take out the automation for this first part, and then we will bring it back in and you can kind of hear the difference that it adds. Pay attention to how the vocal comes in. Okay, so that's, you know, it sounds good, but you know, it's pretty much the same level there. Like, it doesn't really feel like there's any sort of major dynamic shift between the verse and the chorus. So it doesn't feel as exciting or important. So by adding in that automation move, let's hear the difference that it makes. Big difference. Now that vocal really jumps out and it feels like it really commands respect and, you know, really makes you want to listen to the lyrics and pay attention to the chorus, which is, you know, especially in pop, super, super important. And that's just a 0.5 dB move. That's all that was really needed for this. So really, really helpful. So from there, I have the Spectral Shaper by Ozone. I've got it on the Repair Cheap Mic preset. So, you know, Knox does these mixes all by himself and records everything by himself, which is amazing. And I'm continuously super impressed by the work that he does. But, you know, the vocals definitely had that sort of DIY feel to them, which I felt for this sort of song was not the most ideal. So I sort of tweaked this preset a little bit to try and clean things up a little bit with that. So let's hear the difference that that makes. Just opens things up a little. Here's what it's treating here. So, you know, pretty subtle thing, but just, again, kind of another layer of clarity that I'm trying to add before hitting the analog stuff. And then, speaking of clarity, we've got Ozone's appropriately named plugin for that. And I use the Crisp Air preset just to kind of, again, sort of solidify the high end and add that last sort of bit of polish digitally before I start doing all the fun analog stuff. So let's take a listen and hear what that sounds like in context. So yeah, just add some really nice life to the synths and to the high end overall. But yeah, from there, now we go analog. So let's take a look and see what I ended up using for that. Hey, just wanted to cut in the middle here. This is sort of new to me, but I wonder if it will help at all. But if you aren't subscribed already and you've watched this far, I would greatly appreciate if you would give my channel a subscription. anything helps. And you know, if you're interested in working with me and having me do something like this for a song of yours, hit me up. Alrighty, so here's the analog chain. For this song, I use the Vertigo Sound VSC-3 compressor, and then my Manley Massive Passive EQ. And you can kind of see it below here, but I'm using the BetterMaker Mastering Limiter 2.0. Because that's plug-in controlled, we'll go ahead and take a look at the plug-in for that, since it's a little bit more detailed than the interface of the rack unit itself. But to get started with the compressor, so I'm mostly using it to sort of get a lot of gain through the unit. Not really a whole lot of compression. In fact, the compression settings I have are very subtle. Pretty high threshold. I'm using the soft ratio, which kind of does a Varimu sort of thing. So it's a lot more transparent, and then the slowest possible attack at 40 milliseconds to let the most amount of transient through. And then I have it on auto fast release. Usually I would do kind of a more like the standard sort of 0.05 or 0.1, but I found that the auto fast sounded the best to my ears on this one, and then a pretty decent amount of makeup gain. And I have this also on the dual mono side chain, so I'm actually using this compressor in dual mono, which is not always the move for music with a vocal, because it can kind of get the center image to sound a little bit shaky, but I found that it sounded great for this master, and it added some nice width. And then for the side chain, I've got it at 90 Hertz for this to kind of allow the most amount of low end to punch through without getting compressed. So I'm gonna play through the song a couple of times, and we will take it in and out so you can hear the difference it makes, but we'll start with it out. I've needed you to hold me lately. It hurts not to see you, and every single time I'll see it. I won't forget you, baby, and all the separate faces, all the separate places we go. I won't forget you, baby. So as you can hear, it adds some really nice presence and punch to the whole mix without being anything too crazy. I mean, you can see I'm not even really getting any gain reduction readings on the meters there. So it's just some subtle compression, really, and more than anything, just kind of adding some nice analog level and some sort of harmonic saturation through the unit itself. So from there, we're going to go into the Massive Passive. So I'm using every single band on it this time. Especially boosting at 68 Hertz on the low end is not something I normally do, but I found it just worked nicely for this song, which again, I think was kind of thanks in part to that sort of 80s vintage vibe, because the low end processing on the Manley sometimes can be a little bit too sort of smearing of the transients, but it worked really nicely for this track. So I've got another little bit of a boost at 270 Hertz. Again, it sort of adds that nice body and weight to the vocal and drums. And then a boost at 10 kilohertz, quite a more extreme one, which adds that really nice sparkle and presence to the vocal and the high end overall. And then sort of an air boost at 27 kilohertz to, you know, add that final level of polish that the Manley is really good at. So let's take that in and out and hear what that does. So yeah, as you can hear, just a nice level of polish and shimmer to everything. So let's go back to Pro Tools to check out what I'm doing with the BetterMaker. So here is the BetterMaker Mastering Limiter 2.0's plug-in control. So as you can see, I'm using all three modules in it. So we've got the clipping, the limiting, and the harmonic color section as well. So let's just play the song, and I'll take it in and out just so you can hear the sort of difference that it ended up making, and then I'll kind of break down the settings really quick as well. You'll always have strength for me, baby. All right, so as you can hear, it really is starting to bring things to life now with this limiter. I've got a dB of input going into it, and then I'm sending out a dB of output as well. And then I've got the clip around 40%, so 24 millisecond attack on it. Trimming 0.3 dB, and I've got it just on the hard clip setting. And then I'm adding 1.5 dB of width, and I've got it on the intelligent release control, and the side chain is at 60 hertz for this, just because I didn't want to match the 90 hertz of the compressor, just because at this point I wanted to, you know, kind of tame some of the low end processing that was coming in digitally here. And then on my color section, I broke it off into mid sides. So on the mid image, I've got a decent amount of drive, but subtly mixed in at 63 hertz. This just helps add some really nice thump to the drums. And then at 10 kilohertz, again, kind of like on the Manley EQ, just adding some really nice sparkle to the high end of the mix. And then on the side, I've got some drive happening on 20 kilohertz, which just kind of helps add some more nice air and just overall sparkle again. But yeah, it just kind of, again, helps just breathe that final life into the master on the analog side of things before we go digitally. So from the BetterMaker, we then go into this dynamic EQ, and I just have high-end presence here. Again, I'm just really trying to solidify a lot of that really nice sparkle and detail, which just kind of really helps reinforce the sort of pop style of this song. So let's take that in and out and hear what that is doing to the master. So as you can hear, it just really helps the high end pop out even more. We're not going to do a ton of listening to that just as we keep moving here. So from there, I then move into the Imager by Ozone. I've got it on enhanced space, and I had it learn at the loudest section of the song, and then I've got it on 73% as well. I might have pulled down a little bit on some of these controls, and as you can see here, I'm also pulling down on the output as well, just to sort of manage my gain staging going into the sort of final two processors here as well. But let's take a listen on to the width that adds. So as you can hear, it adds some really nice depth and width to the master overall. I really love how 3D this preset can end up making things sound if you dial it in correctly. So that was the sort of main reason I pulled that one up. All right, so following the Imager plugin, I've got another Ozone module here. So I've got the Impact plugin, which is their sort of multi-band expander. So I've got it on the Hype It Up preset, which I believe I tweaked a little bit and then had learn at the loudest point of the song again. And then as you can see here, it correlates to my automation as well. So much like what I was trying to achieve with using master rebalance on the choruses, I have this sort of build up and come back down as well to sort of, again, add that sort of hype to the choruses here. So let's first just take off the automation, and I'll just bypass and unbypass it at sort of the standard level in the chorus, and then we will kind of get into bringing in the automation and hear what that sounds like. As you can hear, it adds sort of a really nice groove to the beat overall in the drums, and just again kind of helps things sort of really breathe and feel more alive and feel more finished. So from there, we're gonna now bring back in the automation so we can hear what exactly was going on with that. just helps things kind of hit harder. Again, much like the master rebalance automation earlier on in the chain. And I'm only automating the amount control. So, you know, it's coming from starting at super subtle, just at 5% throughout most of the song. And then in the choruses, you know, it jumps up at the highest to 23 and kind of comes back down a little bit in this sort of, you know, pre-chorus verse section here, and then jumps back up in that last verse. So let's hear the movement one more time over here. Cool. Yeah. So again, it just adds more excitement, and I also noticed it was bringing a lot of bringing out a lot of interesting details in the synths and reverbs. So I really enjoyed what it was adding. Now, after that, I've got my final instance of limiting, and this plugin is really, really special. I have been really thankful to be alpha testing this for the company, but it's by Andrew Rinhard, a Texas-based mastering engineer, and the rest of his wonderful team. It's a really, really amazing mastering limiter. It is one of the more natural sounding limiters I've been able to use in here, and the stereo linking controls on it are really amazing for sculpting your low end. With that said, I didn't use it on this one. I didn't feel like I needed to, but yeah, let's take a listen to what that is adding to the track.
Down. I've needed you to hold me lately. Hurts not to see you in every single turn I've seen. I won't forget you, baby, and all the separate faces, all the separate places we go. I won't forget you, baby.
Final level of loudness, some really amazing controls on here. I'm definitely going to make a separate video just on this limiter eventually, but for now, let's just hear it in context one more time. And this time I'll just use the unity control, so that way you can kind of actually hear what the limiter is doing a little bit more analytically than just, you know, adding loudness and excitement.
Pick me up when you're feeling that I'm down. I've needed you to hold me lately. Hurts not to see you in every single turn I've seen. I won't forget you, baby, and all the separate faces, all the separate places we go. I won't forget.
Yeah, so as you can hear, like really nice width, really nice presence, and it just helps really maintain the low end and adds that final level of polish. So after the AL1 limiter, the only thing that I have is some dither. So let's go ahead and I'm going to print the master and talk about the final little bit of processing that I added to take this master over the edge and be a finished song. All right, so we've got the printed master here, and basically the last thing that I did, and again, this was sort of in perhaps sort of an homage to, you know, again, the sort of a more classic 80s mastering trick, was I used Pro Tools Varispeed, and I actually sped up and thus pitched up, thanks to Varispeed's properties on Elastic Audio, the whole master itself, just by a few percents, which helped to add, again, that sort of final bit of excitement and hype to the track, just by increasing the tempo by, you know, a pretty microscopic amount. All right, and just for fun, what we're gonna do now is we're also just gonna play the song and bring in every single level of processing so you can kind of hear the master getting built up.
All the separate places we go.
Alrighty, so now that you've heard the mastering process and heard the master get built up, let's actually have a section for some analytical listening here so you can hear the difference between the mix and the master in full fidelity.
You should say that twice. You should tell me thanks, 'cause it's not giving up if there's no what to say. And I hate myself for the way I bang. I'm overcomplicated to the point of shame. You'll always have strength for me, baby. Pick me up when you're feeling that I'm down. I've needed you to hold me lately. Hurts not to see you in every single turn I'm seeing. I won't forget you, baby. And all the separate faces, all the separate places we go. I won't forget you, baby. There's no more time wasting, running and we chasing. I hold you now. Do you see me now? There's a rock in my gut that I can't get out. And you hit me, but I talk so loud. I will wait by your head till you see me frown. So son, I wish you wouldn't trust me. I think you saw me coming. Is this misunderstood?
Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you're interested in working with me or just want to connect over music, I will have my contact information in the description down below. If you're interested in having your music showcased on an episode like this, please hit me up. But yeah, subscribe, like, do all those fun things, and thanks for watching again.
See you.